You're listening to the smartest guys in marketing, the best show on the planet for client businesses to learn about traffic, funnels, sales, conversions, and marketing coolness. Chris and Taylor are the founders of Traffic and Funnels, a digital marketing consultancy helping you get paid clients from cold traffic daily. Now, here are your hosts, Chris and Taylor.
My name is Josh Forti, and we have with us today the man, the myth, the legend, actually the first ever guest of the Think Different Theory podcast. He is what do I want to call him? I want to call him the legend of Nashville, the multi-million-dollar company founder, Mr. Taylor Welch. How are you doing today, my man?
I'm just a man of the people, bro.
Just a man of the people.
The man of the people. I give the people what they want. And I'm the Lord of funnels.
The Lord of Funnels, the man of the people. How do you know what the people want? How do you determine that?
Dude, you just ask them, bro. Old school copywriting, dude. Ask them what they want and give it to them. That's the secret.
That's the secret.
And Chipotle. Chipotle and Starbucks is also the secret.
Chipotle and Starbucks. I love my Starbucks every morning.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, so you're in Nashville, and let's start there. Of all places, why Nashville?
Because Nashville's the best. It's just the best.
How'd you find? What brought you there?
So I grew up in down south. When Chris, who's my business partner, when Chris and I met, we were living in Memphis. Chris is in Charlotte, and my wife Lindsay has always wanted to live in Nashville. It's 3 hours away from Memphis, and it was literally just like, well, we have enough money now, so we should move to Nashville, and that was kind of how we decided. But since being here, it sounds really crazy because we didn't know anything about the city. But since being here, it's an amazing city. It's like an entrepreneurial town. It's growing. Dude, we just had the NFL draft here. So obviously, we get kudos for that. But it's a great town. It's beautiful. Have you ever been?
I love Nashville. I got introduced there down. Actually, a friend of mine has a huge Instagram office down there. He manages like 100 million followers on Instagram, and he's from Nashville. And so I went down there, met a bunch of country stars down there. Are you a country music fan?
I am. Yeah.
Love Look at you.
Music. We actually we just had a webinar where somebody who attended her name was Miranda Lambert. And I was like, is this the Miranda Lambert? She's like, no, it's not. I was like, well, nobody's on video. We never would have known. Like, you should have went with it.
That's awesome.
Honesty. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well done, man. Well, okay, so I want to dive in. For those of you people that don't know you, because some of the audience might not, let's dive in. Brief background. I'm not huge on backgrounds unless they're a critical part of the story. But brief background, because you founded Traffic and Funnels. Talk to us a little bit about how that came about, pre-life, before starting Traffic and Funnels, and what that entrepreneurship journey looked like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up I always wanted to work at a church. That was my first real job. I worked at a church in Memphis, and my wife was a hairstylist. I'm taking you all the way back, and I'll just speed up into TF as fast as we can. I was working at a church. My wife was a hairstylist. She had recently relocated. She didn't have any clients. I ended up transitioning out of the church into real estate and started kind of exploring and still was involved with church, but I just liked having money and eating and having food and stuff. So I got out of that, got into a real job in the corporate world. I stumbled upon marketing because my wife wanted more clients. And I was like, well, I'll just figure out how this whole marketing thing works. It can't be too difficult, right? It's easy. Frank Kern can do it. I can do it. Right. So I started consuming marketing material. This is 2013, 2014. And
how old are you at the time?
24.
Okay.
24, 25. This is how crazy I was because I didn't know what marketing was. I didn't know what copywriting was. I thought copywriting, because I came from the church world, was how you protected your songs with the United States, Copyright Office. And John Carlton taught me that's a different kind of copywriting. I was like, we can buy some addresses. I learned that you can send direct mail to different zip codes that had a higher average income. So I bought a couple of names from different zip codes, and I wrote a letter that was based on a template from a program I had invested in. We sent the letter. I had to borrow money to buy the names, and she got two clients from it the first time. I was like, oh my God, like I am a marketer. I am Frank Kern.
I am
this again and again. The second one bombs. But dude, that was like my first experience. I was working at a real estate company, and I was like, if I can replace my income with my wife's income and get her more clients, I can quit my job. And that was the furthest that my vision could extend. I didn't grow up wanting to be an entrepreneur. I just wanted to be a worship leader, work at church. I didn't have any vision for this. I was literally like, I cannot have to go to work if I can get my wife clients. But once it started, and once I got down the rabbit hole, and I went through a whole lot of heartache and a whole lot of pain and a whole lot of rejection in about 6 months, I was like, man, I can make more than my wife. And my wife was always like, she was the sugar mama. She was always making more money than I was. And I quit my job. This is March of 2014, I believe. Let me backtrack. No, this is March of 2015. And January of 2016, I did over 100 grand in sales.
Wow.
My goal was to do 6 figures my first year. I ended up hitting 6 figures in a month before my first year. And so I grew really, really fast. I'm obsessed, a little sadistic in terms of like when I get into something, I'm all into it.
Right.
And so, yeah, we were living in Memphis at the time. We moved to Nashville. Obviously, we partnered, me and Chris Evans, who Chris Evans is he's Gandalf the White traffic wizard. And man, TF just kind of blew up. We got some really good mentors at the beginning. And today, I like to tell people that, there's different incubators that like Y Combinator or incubators you can actually join to learn how to grow your business. They'll take a piece of equity from you. You go in doing, $5,000 a month, and you exit doing $5 million a month, and they take equity. We do the same thing with client businesses, but instead of taking equity, we take a fee at the beginning. So that's kind of what Traffic and Funnels is about. It's spun off into multiple different companies. We're buying a lot of real estate right now. Dude, I love the game. Like I've figured out that no amount of money is really satisfying. It's just like, I love to win the game. And so
right. Well, I've noticed that about you though.
Many different ways. Yeah.
I've noticed that about you. I follow your content. So like, I don't follow very many people on social. Only because, Sam Ovens got me onto that. I'm in his stuff right now, and, unfollowed everybody on Instagram.
He was one of our first mentors.
Yeah. Yeah. And I knew you had gone through that program, and we just joined.
It didn't exist.
Huh?
We didn't go through it because it didn't exist. We went through just like Sam one-on-one. This is like before he was like the god of marketing.
Before he was Sam Ovens?
He didn't have any programs. We just like, it was so back in the day. Anyway,
that's funny. That's funny. But you're one of the people that I follow on social, because I don't follow very many. But I've noticed that you're big into that. You're not just marketing. Like you understand money, and you understand wealth, and you understand a lot of things, and sales, which I'm fascinated with. Sales is my zone. I want to go back real quick though. You make 100 grand in a month in January, less than a year into your business. That is not an easy feat. What is the trick that you learned? You got 6 months, you said, of just like rejection, right? What got you to that point of, because like I've been in business for a bit, right? 3 years now, had my ups, had my downs, had a good month. I think back before I like leveled out and actually built a real business, I think my best month was like 82, something like that, thousand. But like, it was me. I plateaued, yada, yada. In order to do $100,000 in a month and to continue scaling and growing or whatnot, there's a lot of mindset that goes into that. There's a lot more than just making sales, right? So like, how did you get to that point? What was the key determining factor or the factors that got you to be able to do that in such a short period of time?
Yeah. I think one of the big, like arguably probably the kingpin that like takes people out of the game is somebody will start getting successful, and all of a sudden they start trying to figure pieces out that they don't need to figure out right now. And really this comes back down to fear. Fast forward to today, we are over $1 million a month in sales today. I was talking with Chris yesterday, and one of my buddies is doing like 16 million a year. And I'm like, it's literally like mind-boggling how much money he's making. And Chris was like, well, what is it that we're missing? And I was like, I don't think we're missing anything. I think everything we need to do to hit 4, 5, 6, 7 million a month, we already have it. And this is what people have to understand is when you just get started, you kind of have the ingredients already necessary, but nobody believes that. And that becomes an identity and a pattern of thinking that self-limits you. But when, like, to the entrepreneur who's doing $8,000 a month right now, you don't really need anything else to do 180,000. You already have the ingredients. Your skill set, your ability to reach new customers, it's all at your fingertips. We're in the greatest economy and the greatest infrastructure of all time in history. You have Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You have a million ways to reach customers. What stops people is they don't believe that it's this simple. If you could spend $250,000 in ads, you will make $1.5 million if you have the right systems. They think that they need to become somebody. They don't believe that they have the ingredients to do it. And this becomes a real big mindset roadblock because they're trying to figure out pieces of the puzzle that they don't need to figure out. This happens with us all the time. We'll have new clients will come in. They'll be like, how do I make sure I don't get overwhelmed in client work? It's like, well, how many clients do you have right now? Like, I have 2. But you don't even figure that out, dude. Like, you have 2 clients. But they're spending their juice trying to figure out how to prevent the problem that they don't even know how to create that problem. So, but it's a waste of time. And we see this all the time. You probably see this all the time too. People are solving problems that don't exist yet. And that means that it's taking bandwidth. We get 100 points a day in bandwidth. And most people are spending 90 plus of those points solving irrelevant problems. Things that don't matter at all. What would happen if you used 100 points towards actually making money? You know, those problems would kind of take care of themselves. And that's the reality, man. It's like the big thing for us that kept us stuck. We were stuck at like $500,000 for 2 years. It doesn't sound like, oh, bless your heart, you're stuck at $500,000 a month. But for us, it's like, that's what I'm saying. We weren't winning the game, staying stuck at a certain place for 2 years. And what it came down to is we were trying to fix all of these different things. It just didn't matter. There was a lot of fear for us to really scale. And once we kind of got out of that and we were just like, we're just going to serve people and we're going to go as big as we can. It took 3 or 4 months before we crossed $1 million, and now we're growing again and there's no fear anymore. And fear is like really, really, really bad for the person's psyche. Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, that did for sure. So let's move on to the next step of that. There's so many pieces that I want to get into off of that, but I think the next one is very critical. How do you make decisions? So one of the big things that I'm all about on the podcast is thinking differently, right? I look at something and I want to look at it way different than everybody else's. I want to take a very objective view on it, right? But at some point you have to make a decision. That's a good idea. That's a bad idea, right? I'm not going to focus on this. I am going to focus on this, right? And maybe there's 2 parts to this question. Maybe it's like, how do you determine where to put your energy? But that's still a decision. So how do you go about your decision-making process?
Yeah, I think it depends on what area of life it is. There are certain things that are just like they get into our principles. They get into our list of values that we're not going to change. You know, like I'm married to Lindsay. There are going to be no discussions about whether that is a good decision. I will stay married to her. And you see this happen with entrepreneurs because when everything in your life meritocratic discussion, then you can become extremely imbalanced and almost like you're in a place of chaos where nothing is consistent. So there are things in my life that I'm not going to make decisions about going to church. I'm just going to go to church. You know, call that over spiritual. It was like, well, whatever. It's a principle for me. Not going to make decisions about Lindsay. Not going to, but then everything else is free game. And we try to look at things in terms of like, we want to analyze both sides. And I always tell people, everyone's really good at assessing the risks of action, but nobody's really good at assessing the risks of inaction.
Yeah.
We call this risk assessment and risk tolerance. And I've got a format for kind of going into tolerance as well, if you would like to. But like, I want to compare what does my life look like, not just what if we go into real estate and this doesn't work out. You know, that's one form of risk. But the other form of risk is like, what if I don't do this and the opportunity never comes back around? What's the opportunity cost there? And that opportunity cost is, bar none, the most expensive, tangible cost people pay in their entire lives.
Yeah.
It's that opportunity cost. And so when it comes to making decisions, I would rather, when you call somebody, like let's say you're doing sales, you're a salesperson, you just train salespeople. When you call someone, you want to talk to the decision what?
Maker.
The decision maker. You don't ever want to talk to the person who can't make any decisions. It's because people who can't make decisions are worthless. Like you don't care about them. But I see entrepreneurs refusing to make decisions in so many different areas of their life. That makes them worthless. You're a worthless person if you can't make decisions. Contrast that with the players. I mean, like the wealthy players, Dalio, Buffett, Bezos, Elon. They make so many decisions. And when the decisions don't work out, what's their escape? They make another decision.
Yeah.
And that ends up pulling them out. I learned this from a guy named Eli Wild, who you should get on the podcast because he's a fantastic salesperson. He's talking about, the last thing you should do when you make a bad decision is stop making decisions, because that prevents you from making the next right decision. And I just try to keep this in the forefront of my mind is like, I always want to be moving forward on something. If we ever get into a place where things are too chill for too long, I know we're about to get hammered. And it's kind of that, I don't know exactly how to put that onto paper, but when it comes to making decisions, I am more afraid of me not using the opportunity than I am of me taking an opportunity, but it doesn't work out. And my priority of fear there is what keeps me going.
No, that's huge. And I love that. So with that, how much do you like when it comes to decision making? Obviously, we know the generic environment effects, who you hang out with affects your mindset, yada yada yada, what have you. How important for you is maybe your subconscious mind? I'm big into like quantum physics and stuff. How important to you is feeding your mind or keeping your mind in the right state to be able to make decisions quickly? And how do you go about prepping your mind and keeping it sharp in that sense?
It's 10 out of 10. We have a phrase around the offices here with our salespeople: input equals output. And I can always tell when someone is like uninspired because they will reduce their level of goals to how they feel rather than lifting how they feel to the level of their goals. And man, you look at my office and it's like trinket, trinket, trinket. There's one over here you can't see. My whole environment is stacked so that when my conscious mind is maybe a little bit tired, I've got this harness via my environment, via my inputs, that can keep me from falling out of the plane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when closers don't have this, and when entrepreneurs don't have this, you'll notice that their performance is like up, and then it's down, and then it's up. And you can tell they're following their feelings. Like they're completely like regulating their output based on how they feel when they wake up in the morning, rather than building systems and inputs to change how they feel so that they're always outputting the same. That's why I'm so consistent. And most of the times, dude, I wake up and I just don't care about anything. I'm just like, I'm not an early riser. Like naturally,
right.
I'm pissed off. My energy is like pretty dark in the mornings. Like, but I've got these awesome routines, man, and these awesome trinkets and these different anchor points that feed me and my inputs, ultimately dictating my output. So you see consistency. Nobody sees me going up and down and up and down and up and down. They just see my output. So input equals output. I think it's really important.
That's awesome. And I think that's super important as well. And we talk about routines and systems in the morning routine, just real quickly, look pretty consistent every morning, or does it fluctuate?
Dude, it's consistent Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. The reason that it's different on Wednesday is I found there's a spectrum here of like, when you are inconsistent, your output is chaos. But when you're so consistent that your central nervous system just falls asleep. Like there's no reason to be fresh and awake. And so we just had a baby, and so she's healthy. Everything's good. But one of the things,
by the way,
thank you so much. One of the things I noticed, like being an observer, is if they feel like there's a high risk of something, they will induce the baby because they want control. They want control of the environment. They don't want that baby being randomly born at home without the ability to control the outcome. This induction, they will induce it. And I noticed that every week, and this is like scarily similar for every single closer I've ever trained or managed, every week there's a low point in their energy. And what I found is that if we can induce that, so we call it a lag morning. So 6 days a week, let's say they work 6 days a week. I can see you like turning on right now. You're like, oh my God, tell me. This is interesting.
Yeah, of course, bro. I mean, this is what I like to hear.
This is sales. Let's say 6 days a week you're performing. One of those days, we can use probability to say you're probably not going to feel good one of those days. Your energy is going to be toast. And we don't know what day it is. But let's say we can induce that on a Wednesday so it's controlled. And we have Wednesday stacked up. So, the only form of control you really have in your whole life is adaptability, right? Everything's always going to change. The only way you can control the outcome is to adapt in the middle. And so for me, it's Wednesday. For one of our guys, it's Thursday. For another one, it's Wednesday. But every Wednesday, I completely abandon my morning routines. I wake up an hour later, and dude, I literally just do whatever I want in the morning. Like this last Wednesday, I was just on Instagram for an hour, like the most wasteful hour of my life. But it's in the context of the whole machine, it is not wasteful at all because I'm deciding when my low point is going to be. That means Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, Friday, I'm sharp as a tack, So my routines are very similar. A good book on this is Anti-Fragile. And that's when I kind of learned that if your routines are just too locked in, you become a weak person, So it's the balance of routine with a little bit of chaos that makes a person strong.
I love this. I love it. That's awesome. How many salespeople you got?
9.
Dang, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you keep them.
I'm hiring 2 to 3 people a week.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then firing.
I'm not looking for a job. Maybe I'd come work for you, but sorry.
I saw you post. I was like, man, come on.
Here's the thing. I'm a very competitive person. So whoever that top, whoever you say they made 360 thousand or whatever, I'd want to double that. I'd be your top salesman, but then I'd get bored because I can't. I don't know. I can't work for someone else. I tried it. Okay. I want to
a new business.
Huh?
We'll just partner on a new business together.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I want to. Okay. So there's a couple of things that I want to move into here because I'm a man of faith, right? You're a man of faith. And I really want to touch on how that has, affected your life and affected your business. I also want to touch on, before the interview's over, I want to touch on that, kind of giving the audience a little teaser here. I want to touch on the relationship with your business partner. I have a business partner as well. In our funnel business, she handles a lot of the fulfillment side of things. I do a lot of sales. I also want to touch on the changing economy and how it's definitely going to collapse for sure or shift and touch on that. But going into that, I think there's an ethical thing. So I'm gonna try to navigate this through and kind of make it flow. So let's start with the faith thing, right? And start with how that's played into your life and your decision making and things like that. You grew up, it sounds like, in the church. You grew up someone of faith. Your parents in the church, yeah?
Yep.
So at what point in your life did you make it yours? And at what point in your life, I'm going to take a guess here, a stab in the dark, to say at some point you probably questioned and did some research and made it your own, right? What point did that happen, and how did you decide on Christianity or faith that you have, the faith that you have?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I was raised in an AG church in Louisiana.
I'm sorry, you cut out there. You were raised where?
I was raised in an Assemblies of God church down in Louisiana.
Okay.
So it was actually pretty religious. I was raised in a pretty religious environment. And when we moved to Memphis, and we got into a little bit of a less religious church, but it was still, to an extent, I had to figure out that, I was either going, sometimes it can feel like cultish.
Super.
And we just do things because we take the spirituality out of it and we just make it a routine, rote thing. And so I would say that I really challenged, and I kind of went through a darker time in my faith from the years 21 to 24, 25, because I was like, man, that my whole life I've believed that I wanted to work at a church, and I believed that this is my mission, but really it was just about, doing the right things. And if you are a good person, and I was like, but I can find that in Brendan Burchard,
Right.
I can be a good person anywhere. And we my wife is awesome, and we had a lot of conversations about it. And she was ultimately the one that was like, I think you need to transition off of staff, because it was my job. Being a Christian was my job.
Yeah, you're a professional Christian.
Dude, I have such a heart now for people who work at church and stay healthy, because I'm like, man, that is the hardest job of all time. I mean, dude, you work 100 hours a week and you barely get paid. This is like, you got to be called to it. But I have such a respect for them, because for me, I was just like, being a Christian was just my job, and I got paid to do it. And it just was really unhealthy for me. But we found like a great church in Nashville, and it kind of has changed our life. You know, we've plugged in there and really gotten to a place where it feels really good. It's not just something where we just go to church because it's Easter. You know, I think another thing is, like, me and Chris talk about this all the time, is like, our success has to be for something.
Yeah.
Or else you get bored and you're just going to burn out. And so being able to give to people who are, you know, we do these give drives to homeless people, and we give to widows in Charlotte who have been widowed either via divorce or whatever, and they can't pay for their children. And there's something about it that just makes you come alive. And like, picture it right now of like, I want to hit $1 million a month because I want a new Ferrari. Or like, man, there's this widow who has 4 children and they're living like in a really bad place, and you want to do $1 million a month so that you can find 100 of them and take care of their children.
Yeah.
The energy is different, you know?
Super.
And so how much of an impact does faith have on our lives? It's like, you can't remove Taylor and Chris from our faith. Like, it's like at the basis, it's the foundation. And I think that would pose a lot of challenges at the beginning, because most people who are, you know, I don't want to say religious people, but they're faith-based people, are idiots.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, it's just true. It's like, you got these Christian business owners who are just stupid, and they can't run a business. And it's like embarrassing. You almost don't even want to know. You don't even want to tell someone. It's like, we just wanted to like do our own thing, and but people started noticing, and they started asking questions, and it's kind of working its way back in. But I feel like if we want to go ahead and go there, I'm not sure how comfortable you are with this.
I'm very comfortable. I'll talk about it. Yeah. Especially on this topic, for sure.
I believe, and I think that, dude, we have the source of all the creativity. We have the source of the greatest inspiration. And I really think that there needs to be some powerful Christian business owners that can step up and show people that, you know, it's possible to win in business and remain faithful to the same woman or the same husband. You know, it's possible to be a baller and to have the cars and to have the houses, but still, you know, submit your tithes to the local church.
Right.
Like, it's possible to do both. And we did not have that example when we were starting. All we saw, and this is a big concern, is as soon as you get successful in business, the house falls apart.
Yeah.
Divorced 5 times. It was like a worry for me. I was like, I don't want this to happen, because at the end of the day, you can build the biggest business on the planet, but if you lose your wife because of it, then what does it matter?
Right.
And so we're trying to work all of that in. It's just kind of a touchy thing, because people get so weird about spiritual stuff, you know? So
I got mad respect for that, man. It's like super, super mad respect. And that's something that, you know, I strive for very heavily. I recently joined, at my church, there's a men's group that I just started recently going to on Wednesday nights, and hooked up with a super cool dude there. We're talking about a lot of this same stuff, you know, because one of the things, and I'd be curious to know your thoughts on this. You know, I grew up, we have probably a pretty similar story. I mean, I grew up ultra, ultra conservative, ultra, like, you know, all the girls had to wear dresses to the, you know, the ankles. And, you know, even I had to wear a t-shirt while swimming because, you know, because it was modest, like super, right?
Yeah.
And so like, I had my run in with, you know, kind of putting God on the shelf for a little bit, struggling, kind of got into drugs, you know, thankfully came out of that and, you know, really found my purpose and my calling and my passion with him. But one of the things that I noticed was like, man, especially in this Instagram world, that was my come up, right? Like, we've grown and managed millions on Instagram. All you see is Lambos and Ferraris and mansions and girls and this and that. And so I'm like, my mind was so messed up and jacked up. And that's why I stopped following everybody on it. My perception of what success was in this world was so jacked. And so, for you to say, hey, we need Christian leaders, we need people that, to stand up. I'm pretty open about my faith. But one of the biggest things that I have a problem with Christians in today's society, especially those people that those Christians that kind of tend to get into business that aren't real leaders, they kind of tend to scream Jesus at you and kind of be like, you're going to hell if you don't, blah, blah, blah. And my business is for yada, yada, yada. How do you differentiate yourself? Or how do you deal with people that categorize you? And I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's a question that I'm genuinely curious about for me. How do you personally deal with people that hear you're a Christian and go, oh, you're one of those people?
I don't care. I'm like, if I probably have way more money than you, so I don't need you. there is still, like, here's the thing, like you need to win on every level of your life. That is possible. That is possible, unless you're lazy or a sellout or cheap. You need to be winning in your health. You need to be winning in your spiritual walk. You need to be winning in your business, your marriage, your family life, your friendships, all of this. Can you win on every level? Yes, you can. And the reason that Christians have such a bad rap is because they'll be like, well, I'm a Christian, so my spiritual stuff is safe. But then they're a complete moron and failure in every other area of their life. Like, they only have one. It's the Parthenon. And we work with Jay. Jay's one of our mentors, Abraham. And he's got this famous thing. It's the Parthenon. Where it's like, you don't have just one pillar. You have 10 of them, And so it doesn't happen often, because at this point we have enough, like, I don't want to say clout, but people know, like, they know, like, we're not struggling in anywhere. Like, there's no struggle in terms of finance. We're not like driving the beaters. And so if someone were to be like that, I'd be like, cool, bro, screw you. I mean, there's no that. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. And by nature of what we know about power dynamics and social currencies, you're going to have 50% of the room that really loves you, and 50% is going to hate you whether you're a Christian or not.
Right.
Lump them into the same category.
Yep.
Like, toodles,
Yep. So with this, I kind of want to make a shift now that we've kind of established where you and I at least make decisions. And I think that I've met a lot of people that are not, people of faith that may more attribute things to the universe and the love and yada, 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 what have you, which, I tend to agree with a lot of what they say. I just believe the source is different. Let's talk about, like, the ethical shift in today's society, which we live in America, which I believe greatest country in the world, but on the same time of that, like, ultra capitalism, ultra greed, and you just see it screaming everywhere at every part. At what point because it's led to where we're at. It's led to the greatest economy ever, which we know is going to, kind of tip at some point. But at what point does it become too much? At what point does business in general become, I don't want to say a bad thing, because I don't think that business is a bad thing, but at what point does your moral step in and go, no, we're not doing this for the sake of just profit. We're not doing this for the sake of, whatever that thing is. We're doing this for purpose. We're doing this for, ethics. And you've got to have what I like to call, like, conscious capitalism. It's like, how do you determine what's too much? How do you determine, where you draw the line as far as just like sell, consume, put it out for the sake of putting it out rather than for the sake of actually making someone better?
Two things come to mind when you say that. And the first is, like, if you study companies, missional companies tend to make it, and just economies of scale, put money in your pocket companies tend to get kicked out of the game eventually. So there is something to be said for, like, if the goal of there is some old direct response people who I won't name, who are like, the number one purpose of the business is to make the owner rich. It's like, well, you're old and you're going to die soon and your guard is ending, and that's not true anyways. But that's probably why you got capped, right? Because the biggest companies in the world are very missional. And when Jobs was here, yes, he was concerned with obviously the health and the capital allocation of the business, but he hated the ugliness of Microsoft so much that it drove him to change things. Bezos, despite what you think of him, he wanted to pass the benefit to the consumer so much that sometimes it caused him to do some nasty things with the distributors. It's like there was mission behind it. Missional companies survive and non-missional ones don't. And the second thing is just understanding order of consequence. When you talk about where's the spectrum, you picture the old radio dials, and it's kind of like there's a dial in the middle, and what you're asking is like, where's the moral compass? Like, where's the perfect? And I think that to answer that question, you have to know the orders of consequence for the market that you're in. War is a very nasty thing. If you only understand the first order of consequence, then you can stop there. But, what about when there's a necessary war to stop an Adolf Hitler? And you see what I mean? Like, the orders of consequence dictate and require you to go and do something that a simplistic person, I'm getting really dangerous here because we can get into Machiavellianism and the laws of nature, and there are very bad people who could use good things for the wrong reasons. But at the end of the day, I think what is wrong with the way people view the world today is they have one order of consequence. Only one. Yeah. And if something feels bad, it's wrong. If something feels good, it's right. Yeah. It's like, so you're going to die of obesity if you live your life based on the first order of consequence. What about the second? What about the third? Not sleeping in and going to the gym, the first order of consequence is this feels really bad. But the second order of consequence is I am healthy. And the third order of consequence is I get to survive long enough to see my grandchildren. And the orders of consequence, we have to go to the third and the fourth and the fifth. We can't be making decisions based on the first. When you look at politics and capitalism and Trump, go ahead and go there. We have to look at all of these things, and nobody's doing that. And if we make judgmental claims, we're going to really die, I think, as the superpower because we've made the first order consequence greater than the third.
Yep. What do you think of Trump?
I think Trump is brash. I think he could maybe handle from getting his Twitter taken away at times. But here's the thing is he is creating his own leverage via his words and via negotiation. He's got the order of consequence thing nailed, bro. I mean, let's just be real.
Yeah.
I don't always agree with the way he does it, but he'll create leverage over here via a stupid threat that people are like, he can't be serious, but he may be. And there's just enough threat there that he can get what he wants over here. And I don't agree with everything that he does, and I definitely don't agree with everything that he says. But where we are right now, he has kept the economy going, and I think that it's been good for business owners.
Yeah, for business owners, for sure. Before I go down that trail, which I want to get to, and I know we're coming up on our time here, but we still got some time. I want to talk really quickly, though, before we move on to that, about the balance between business and charity work's not the right deal, but maybe moral issues in society, right? I feel, so you may or may not know, my brother, older brother, passed away about 8 weeks ago in a helicopter crash. And he was out of Denver, very, very, very well respected in the political realm. Yeah, appreciate that. So his wife, has a son out there. They were very, very involved in like the foster care system. Very, very well respected in the political realm. He was a political consultant, owned a company out there, had employees. Who's the Speaker of the House? Paul Ryan, Mike Pence. Like he campaigned for Pence back when he was the governor of Indiana. Like knew and met Pence. I mean, like big time. A lot of people knew him, right? So very, very involved in the political realm, and he was probably the most gracious person when it came to seeing across party lines. He was like, dude, it's not Democrats and Republicans, it's people, right? Like, come on, guys, let's work together type deal, right? And so he brought a lot into where I would walk into a meeting or a conversation, and I would go, business, all right? If it's not self-sustaining, why is it here, right? Like, come on now. And he would go and be like, Josh, listen, I agree with you. I'm all about business, but we got these moral issues over here, right? We've got these people that are, actually hurting, these people that don't have the mind of you, these people that are not cut out for that thing, and they're real people too, right? And, they are just as much justified as a life. You might not agree with them. How do you make decisions, or at what point does it come to, as laws in the country and the thing that we're living in, do we not do things for the sake of business and we do things for the betterment of the people? Because there are laws and there are things out there, I would imagine you would agree, that are pro big business or pro business at all. I think Trump is more of a, and I've been pretty vocal about my support for Trump. So like, I'm in no place to talk here, but like at some point there are laws made for business, there's laws made for the people, and then there's laws for both of them. Where do you draw the line that says, yes, it might be good for business. Yes, it might not be a bad thing necessarily, but it could hurt people long-term. It could hurt the environment long-term. Where do you draw that line there?
So this is a balance thing, because this is actually a principle that we've proven is typically there is a breaking point or a law, diminishing returns, where at the beginning, what's good for the system is good for the person. They're connected, but it crosses over a certain point when all of a sudden what's good for the system is harmful for the individual, and vice versa. This is anti-fragility, going back into the anti-fragile concept. When a plane crashes, that's one of the best things that can ever happen for the individual who's going to be on a plane next year. Why?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
The plane that crashes now so that they can prevent the plane crashing in the future.
Yeah, because improvement typically comes through tension and disaster. Like that's where, so there's this weird thing, like Titanic's was the best thing that ever happened to, ocean liners, that Titanic sinking. And so this is very Darwinistic. Right. This is very far removed from like having compassion and emotion and being plugged into the people. But there's a part of me that is Darwinistic, and it's like, there is survival of the fittest. If you read the book When Giving Hurts, it talks about that. Just going through and feeding all the homeless people in the world is actually not great for society, because what about the people who are homeless by choice? And what's the difference between giving and enabling? Dude, how do we know? Like, how am I going to be able to say that? But there is a balance there. And when Trump came in, I think he was really concerned with the collapse of the dollar. And so everything Trump has done has been to fix the collapse of the dollar. First order consequence, he's a jerk. We get that. Second order consequence, if he's not a jerk and the dollar collapses, it's much more harmful to Mexico than if the dollar stays strong. You see, like, right. There's all these things. It's so complicated. It's so complex that most of the time I keep my mouth shut because there's so many different viewpoints. But I think when giving and doing things for individual people enables them, and ultimately the second and third order consequence prevents them from growing into the person that they were supposed to be, I think that's where the line is. We give a lot of money to homeless people, but there are homeless people that are homeless by choice. Yeah. And they could be somebody, but they're too comfortable. And so I don't think that we're held responsible for that. I think that we're held responsible for the activity. And if you give $10 or $100 to someone and they go buy alcohol with that, that doesn't come back on me. Right. What I'm responsible for is my generosity. And I think motive plays a big part. I'm not giving you a definitive answer because I can't. Right. No. Possible.
And I knew you couldn't. I just wanted to see what you'd say, because it's one of the things that I struggle with, because I'm like, I'm a pretty compassionate person. I'm an empath, like, to the core. A lot of people don't see that. They think I'm this big bad guy online that supports Trump and just wants to get rich. Which to a certain extent, I do want to be rich, but like, I really want to help people, and I never want my business actions to trump that. And so I'm just, I always ask these questions because these are questions that I, genuinely want to ask people and really think about, for myself.
Dude, case in point real fast is like 3.5 years ago, I did this because we just had to pay taxes. Taxes are awesome. If you haven't ever had to pay 6 figures, 7 figures of taxes, it's the best feeling. But 4 years ago, I made $32,000 in the year. Last year, we were able to give almost $60,000 to our church. That's awesome. Double what my income was 4 years ago. And if the last 4 years, I've just been giving all our money away and letting people in for free, and we wouldn't have been able to do that. So you wanting to be rich is a very healthy thing for everyone else. It's not always a bad thing. But when your level of energy, which is another good book, Levels of Energy, is underneath, let's say like 120, you can't see that. And most of the country, I think America is like around 150. Most of the country, that's an average. Most of the country is under 100. So the people voting, we can't even trust that they see long enough to even understand what a second order consequence is. Are they dumb? Are they stupid? No, they're not dumb. They're not stupid. But their level of energy is so low that they're only focused on, today I have to eat.
And it's so hard, man. And I agree with you 100%, but it's really hard knowing that, like, so I'm someone that commits myself to the betterment of myself, right? Constantly reading, studying, masterminds, working out, yada, yada, yada. Yep. And so I look at the world totally different than so many other people. And I see things for what I believe they truly are, right? Or at least as close as I possibly can get to that. And with that level of energy, with that level of insight, and you go, I know that for the betterment of everyone and for the betterment of this, like, this is the right decision, right? Or like, this is the direction that we should be going, even though everybody else thinks otherwise. And so you have to be so confident in believing that, going that decision, making those decisions to try to move things that direction, even when everybody else is against you or thinks differently than that. And that's hard because, man, I tell you, if you're wrong, and I mean, that's not to say right or wrong or whatever, but that's a very interesting point that I don't think people get. And whenever I've told people that, and when I've said, like, hey, I'm seeing things differently because I've forced myself to be at this level, they're like, oh, you're, a prideful, arrogant, yada, 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 or you think you're better than everybody else. It's like, no, it has nothing to do with me being better. It has nothing to do with you being better. It just is the fact that we've chosen to do things differently, to see things differently because we've bettered ourselves, and it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing for me because I never want someone to feel like they think that I'm better than them, right? Or that they think that I think that I'm better than them. But sometimes you just look at things and you go, you're just wrong. You know what I mean? You're just incorrect with the way your way of thinking.
Well, you are better than them in a lot of regards, but it's because of your level of energy. It's not necessarily because of your opinion. And I think I'm a little less. I don't care if you think that I'm better than you, because chances are I am, unless I'm not. And who cares? Like, that's the beauty of America, is we can disagree and still be brothers. People are losing that a little bit. That is definitely Trump's fault, but he needed to do it to get elected. So whatever.
For sure. So let's move into that, because I want to kind of wrap up with this. This is one thing that fascinates me. You're someone that very much understands wealth and wealth creation. And I think that you're, based on what I've seen from you, you're pretty well versed in the whole economic state of everything. What's the future of the economy? What's the future of America? When are we all this glorious internet bubble gonna pop? And the economy will go.
Well, we're not in the longest bull run ever. I think that we are in, except for World War II. That was longer than where we are now, but it does have to correct. Things are overpriced almost everywhere. I started studying money like a year ago, going into like the Creature from Jekyll Island and like the history of money and where all that comes from. And Ray Dalio has been a huge influence for me because that dude knows economics. He's forgotten more about it than any of us will ever learn. But I don't think that there's going to be a pop for internet marketing. I mean, I think that the bottom 70% will get kicked out of the game, and I am thrilled about it. I think we're all tired of competing with idiots who have never done anything. Like, when those people can compete with the professionals in the league, then you know that something's wrong.
Yeah.
But I think in the next year and a half, we're already seeing things slow down. The interest rates are going up. Real estate markets are cooling a little bit. It's already helping us because we're able to get properties for a little cheaper already in different markets. And dude, I'm telling you, if you look at every single person who's like $1 billion plus net worth, dude, they all got rich in a down economy.
Yeah,
all of
for
them.
sure.
So I don't think it's anything that you should be scared about. The greatest risk that people have is not an economy. It's not getting beat up in a dark alleyway. The greatest risk is the lack of preparation. And that lack of preparation typically comes from the lack of knowledge. And that's why we started studying it, so we could build a plan and prepare for it. So
go
ahead.
How does one prepare, or what does one do to prepare for a down economy or for opportunity, just in general? What's your recommendation for people listening?
Well, you want to have cash for sure. How much cash you want to have depends on all of the above, your lifestyle. That's why our lifestyle, dude, if you look at how much money we make in proportion to how much money we spend, like, we basically live like paupers. People see the Rolex and the Teslas, and they see Chris's big mansion house. But I mean, if you actually take the percentage of money we spend on our lifestyle compared to what's coming into the business, dude, we might as well be living in tents. The percentage of income to lifestyle is so low. And that's because we're reinvesting into cash on hand and assets. Because when everything corrects, banks are going to loan money to people with assets, and people with cash on hand are going to be able to go buy. Picture the business doing $1 million right now, and that business is selling for 3 times EBITDA, which is 1.5 million. And when the economy crashes, they have a payroll of $20,000 a month, and they ran out of cash. We'll be able to buy them just to cover their payroll for 6 months, $120,000, because they have to sell or they have to close up shop. And so opportunity typically comes the most often when there's crises. That's why the old adage, you buy when there's blood in the streets. Especially if you're in the marketing or the sales world, though, when do people need marketing more than ever before? When customers are the hardest to find.
Yeah.
When do they need good sales talent more than ever before? When nobody's buying.
Yeah.
So for us, I think we're actually media is already getting cheaper. As people slow down a little bit, we're going to be able to buy ads for pennies on the dollar. People are going to need our services more than ever. It's a great thing. It's just not a great thing for people who are foolish and they don't pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big opportunity there for sure.
Yep.
How do you, real briefly, how do you determine where to put your focus? Because, one of the big things in business you hear from a lot of people, and once again, I'm big in Sam Ovens right now. Focus on one thing, focus, scale, one thing. You're diversified, right? You got real estate assets, you got your business that you're growing, you've got a team now. How do you determine where to put your energy and where to focus?
Yeah. Sam was a big influence on me personally when we were we actually brought him on as a mentor month 3.
Oh, wow. So early on.
Very early on. This was before he had the 2K course and everything. And he's changed a lot since then. In terms of what he's doing and how it works. But I agree with the whole focus thing. And I think that the barometer on that is focus on it exclusively until it no longer requires your focus. And the way we've done that is we have invested into team. And so we don't, if I walked away from traffic and funnels for the next 6 months, the business would bring in $6 million in revenue. It doesn't require my focus to maintain. And then I can take my focus and move it elsewhere.
Yeah.
And the reason that we're pulling money out, Sam's different. I think Sam is very bullish on keeping all of your money in the business, which is great because when you have $800 million in cash, you can just do whatever you want. Not quite that much, probably.
Right.
But he's a legend, and we still talk every once in a while. We love Sam. But we're pulling money out of the business because we want to be able to loan against assets when the economy does correct, and we're going to buy more assets. And so it's just a thing. We found a partner, and we're buying real estate. We've got 3 different businesses that are putting out good money right now. And but we're still focused, man. We have only 3 goals for 2019. That's it. Only 3. Whereas,
what are they?
2 years ago,
or can I not ask?
12. No, that's fine. I'll give you general goals. The first is a revenue goal and a people goal for TF. The second is a revenue goal and a people goal for Sales Mentor, which is our sales consulting product. So I have 9 salespeople right now. We do daily meetings. We're hiring all of our own people in-house. We don't use a firm to do that. And 2 of my top salespeople, every time they pick up the phone, they make more than $5,000 for the company per time they pick up the phone. So nobody else in the industry is doing that. Cardone's not doing that. Nobody. Sam's not doing that. Nobody's doing it. I'm we need to train other people how to train their salespeople to do that. So that's for Sales Mentor. And then we have a portfolio value goal. That's it. TF, SM, and real estate. And all the water flow goals come into that. But what we would have done 3 years ago is been bro, we can make an info product right now. And started a new info product, but it doesn't fit. You only have a certain amount of bandwidth. So we're still pretty focused and dialed in.
Nice.
You know
okay.
what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. All right. I appreciate it. I got some rapid fire questions, then we'll wrap this thing up because I want to respect your time for sure. All right. Real quick. The podcast is called The Think Different Theory. What's the number one mental or thought process shift you've ever had in your life?
Jeez, dude. I wish I would have been prepared for this.
Or a major one.
I'll give you the first one. Normalization. It's the first one that comes to mind. I learned really early on that when you become someone different on the inside, if you can reflect that on the outside as quickly as possible, you eliminate the risk of going backwards. So,
ooh, that's good.
I will force my team, especially my sales guys, at certain points. Peyton, my brother, who sells for us, he's one of our top guys. I've made him buy 2 new cars since he's worked for me, because when he levels into a new month, I don't want him getting into that old Toyota Camry. Not because Toyota Camrys are bad, but it's attached to a different identity. And when he has a big week, I don't want him reverting to that old identity. So we're always normalizing our external environment to eliminate the risk of moving backwards.
That's awesome. Number one piece of advice for people that they're making multi-six figures, maybe a little more than that. They've got free cash coming in, right? So they're saving multi 4 figures or 5 figures a month that they're putting away. What's your number one piece of money advice for them? What to do with that money?
It's not enough. It's my number one piece of advice. If you're under probably, I think 35K is the minimum per month right now, you're toast. Get around people who make more. The reason I say that is because our financial model, you want to pay yourself a little bit, invest a little bit, and set aside some for taxes. And most people, they're making 6 figures and they think it's awesome, and it's just not enough. Yeah. Get around people who make way more than you to teach you what it feels like to climb the ladder. It's not enough.
Cool. Favorite movie? We're shifting big time here.
Yeah, we are. Favorite movie.
I'm gonna humanize you a little bit. You're not a superhero.
I know, dude. I'm like not really a big movie guy. In fact, people make fun of me. Chris makes fun of me because he'll quote movies, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. I'm more of like, I just read Tim Ferriss instead of watch TV.
Yeah. Well, I don't watch TV. I hardly watch it. Huh?
Remember the Titans.
Remember the Titans? All right. I respect that. I just watched Endgame last night. I'm not going to ruin it for anyone, but
we're going tonight.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
But Remember the Titans is like classic, dude.
Well, right.
Like The Blind Side, those movies like get really inspired, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Favorite book?
Of all time?
Well, outside of the Bible, I would imagine that's got to be up there. But favorite
Principles by Ray Dalio. And then, dude, there's another one that I read every quarter. It's 177 Mental Toughness Secrets. It's by a guy named Steve Siebold. You heard of that?
No, I've not. I'll have to check it out.
Dude, it's unbelievable. The 80% of the book is highlighted.
That's awesome. Well done. Okay, awesome. Favorite podcast outside of mine?
Definitely yours. Sorry, I'm struggling with some most answer these questions.
No, you're good.
I listen to so many different things. I would probably say Tim Ferriss is up there. He's got a great podcast. One of the ones that I've been listening to a lot recently is trying to figure out what it's called. It's Exponential Wisdom.
Exponential Wisdom. Okay. 2 more questions for you. What's a big goal of yours? Like big, like non-business, non-helping other people, selfish goal of yours that you want to accomplish someday, like a bucket list thing that you want to do in your life?
Me and my wife, we want to have a place in like 3 major cities. We want a place on the ski slopes. We want a chateau in Paris and a nice place in New York City that we can take our kids to in vacation. That's going to require some serious net worth. I'm not going to do that without having huge investment accounts. Huge. That's awesome. All right, last question for you. You're on your deathbed. Everything that you've done in your life has been taken away from you. No one remembers you for anything, but every single person that you have impacted and that you have touched with your life, you can leave them with one final piece of advice, one final piece of wisdom. What do you want them to remember you by? What's your last parting words to them? Oh, do the right thing. And the right thing is usually the hard thing. Perfect. It's worth it. It's worth it. Do the right thing, usually the hard thing. Taylor, you've been the first guest on the Think Different Theory podcast. I appreciate you and your time, man, and look forward to, I'm sure we'll have you back at some point, but when I'm down in Nashville, I'll have to swing by the office and say hi. Come on, bro. Let's do it. Thanks for having me, man.